The salt air stung my eyes as I stood on the empty lot where our dream beach house once stood, the waves crashing in the distance like a heartbeat too loud for the silence around me. The for sale sign was gone, replaced by fresh tire tracks in the sand, and in my hand, the deed transfer notice crumpled like the hope I'd clung to during those dark months of grief. My husband, Mark, had sold it all, our sanctuary, our future, without a word, while I was lost in the fog of losing our baby. The betrayal hit like a rogue wave, pulling me under. But as I stared at the horizon, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the moment I started fighting back. It wasn't always like this, waves of pain crashing one after another. No, our story began with softer tides, the kind that lap gently at your feet and invite you to wade deeper. Mark and I met in college, in a crowded lecture hall where the professor droned on about economics, his voice a steady hum against the scratch of pencils on paper. I was 20, studying literature, my backpack stuffed with dog-eared novels and dreams of writing my own someday. Mark sat next to me by chance, his notebook open but blank, a shy smile creeping across his face when our elbows brushed. "Mind if I copy your notes later?" he asked, his voice warm like sun-baked sand. We laughed about it over coffee that afternoon, the steam rising from our mugs in lazy curls, mingling with the aroma of fresh ground beans. He was studying business, ambitious but grounded, with eyes the color of storm clouds and a laugh that made my worries dissolve. We dated through those whirlwind years, building a life piece by piece. After graduation, he landed a job at a mid-sized firm, crunching numbers in a cubicle that smelled of printer ink and stale coffee. I taught high school English, grading essays late into the night, the red pen leaving trails like veins on the pages. We married in a simple ceremony on the beach at sunset, the sky painted in pinks and oranges, the ocean whispering vows of its own. I wore a flowing white dress that caught the breeze, and Mark's suit was crisp, his tie a soft blue to match the waves. Our families cheered as we kissed, the sand cool between my toes. And that night, under a canopy of stars, we dreamed aloud about the future, a home by the sea. Children running through the surf. It took 5 years to make that dream real. We saved every penny, skipping vacations and fancy dinners, opting instead for picnics in the park with sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, the crusts crunchy under our fingers. Mark handled the finances, his spreadsheets meticulous, rows of numbers adding up to possibility. "One more year," he'd say, kissing my forehead as we lay in our tiny apartment bed, the city noise filtering through the thin walls. Finally, we found it, a modest beach house on the outskirts of town, weathered clapboard siding painted pale blue, with a porch overlooking the dunes. The realtor handed us the keys on a rainy afternoon, the metal cold and promising in my palm. "It's yours," she said, and Mark squeezed my hand, his grip steady. We moved in that summer, the house smelling of salt and fresh paint. I hung curtains that billowed like sails in the wind, and Mark built a fire pit in the yard, the stones rough under his hands. Our days settled into a rhythm, mornings with coffee on the porch, the steam mingling with the sea mist. Afternoons walking the beach, shells crunching underfoot, our fingers intertwined. Evenings were for cooking together simple meals like grilled fish with lemon, the sizzle of it on the pan filling the kitchen with citrusy warmth. Mark would wrap his arms around me from behind, his chin on my shoulder, murmuring, "This is our escape. No kids yet, but we talked about it often." Imagining little feet pattering on the wooden floors. Then came the pregnancy. It happened unexpectedly, those two pink lines on the test strip glowing under the bathroom light. I showed Mark that evening, my hands trembling as I held it out. His face lit up, eyes wide with joy, and he pulled me into a hug that smelled of his aftershave, spicy and familiar. "We're going to be parents," he whispered, his voice thick. We celebrated quietly, a bottle of sparkling cider on the porch, the waves a soothing backdrop. The beach house felt even more like home now, a nest for our growing family. I painted the spare room in soft yellows, envisioning a crib there, mobile twirling above. But life doesn't always follow the script we write. At 12 weeks, the cramps started sharp, insistent, like a warning I couldn't ignore. We rushed to the car ride, a blur of red lights and Mark's white-knuckled grip on the wheel. The doctor confirmed it with a gentle tone, her hand on my knee. Miscarriage. The word hung heavy, like fog rolling in from the sea. I felt empty, a hollow shell washed up on the shore. Mark held me as I cried, his shirt damp with my tears, but his own eyes were dry, distant. "We'll try again," he said, but his voice cracked just a little. The grief swallowed me whole. Days blurred into nights, the beach house a refuge and a reminder all at once. I'd sit on the porch staring at the ocean, the salt air mixing with the ache in my chest. Mark went back to work quickly, his routine a shield, but at home, he was quieter, his touches briefer. I started therapy, driving into town twice a week to a small office where the counselor, Ms. Ellis, listened with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Grief takes time," she'd say, her voice soft as the ticking clock on her desk marked the minutes. I poured out my pain, the what-ifs, the emptiness, and slowly, fragments of peace returned, like shells collected one by one. Mark supported me, or so I thought. He'd make tea in the evenings, chamomile steaming in mugs, and sit with me as the sun dipped low. "I'm here," he'd say, his hand on mine, but sometimes his phone would buzz, and he'd step away, his voice low in the other room. I chalked it up to work stress, the firm demanding more with end-of-year audits. Little things shifted, bills arriving late, his credit card statements tucked away instead of on the counter. Once, I found a casino chip in his jacket pocket, red and gold, smooth under my fingers. "From a client's event," he explained with a shrug, his smile quick but not reaching his eyes. I nodded, pushing down the flicker of unease, too wrapped in my own sorrow to probe deeper. The therapy helped, though. After 3 months, I felt the fog lifting, enough to plan a small getaway, just us, reconnecting at the beach house. But when I suggested it, Mark hesitated, his fork pausing midair over dinner, the pasta cooling on his plate. "Work's busy," he said, avoiding my gaze. That was the first real clue, a crack in the facade. But grief has a way of blinding you to the storms brewing elsewhere. As winter approached, the beach house stood empty more often, the wind whistling through the eaves when we'd drive out for weekends. I'd walk the shore alone, collecting driftwood smoothed by the sea, while Mark stayed inside, glued to his laptop. "Just checking emails," he'd say, but his fingers tapped restlessly, not the steady rhythm of typing. One night, as rain pelted the windows like impatient fingers, I woke to find him gone from bed. The glow from the living room led me to him, hunched over his phone, the screen casting shadows on his face. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice sleepy. He startled, closing the app quickly. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." "Come back to bed." His kiss was distracted. Tasting faintly of whiskey from the glass beside him, I tried to ignore it. Focusing on healing, Ms. Ellis encouraged journaling. So I filled notebooks with my thoughts, the pen scratching paper in the quiet mornings. Entries about loss turned to hopes, maybe trying for another baby soon. Mark nodded when I brought it up, but his enthusiasm was muted, like an echo fading. Bills piled up subtly, the electric higher than usual. A mysterious charge on the statement for entertainment services. "Must be a mistake," he said. Calling to dispute it, his voice tense on the line. The turning point came on a crisp February day. I just returned from therapy, the session leaving me lighter, ready to talk about our future. The house smelled of coffee, but Mark wasn't in the kitchen. Instead, a letter waited on the counter, official seal glaring under the light. I opened it with numb fingers. Notice of property sale. Our beach house sold 2 weeks prior. Proceeds transferred to Mark's account. The paper trembled in my hand, the words blurring. He hadn't said a word. The letter slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the tile like a dead gull. I stood there in the kitchen, the coffee pot gurgling its last drops, the sound suddenly obscene in the silence. Mark's boots weren't by the door. His coat wasn't on the hook. The house felt hollow, as if the walls themselves had exhaled and forgotten to breathe back in. I called him once, twice, voicemail, Mark. "Call me now." My voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't cry. Not yet. Grief had already taught me how to hold the tears until they served a purpose. I drove to the beach house. 45 minutes of highway, windows down, salt wind whipping my hair into knots. The radio played an old love song. I snapped it off. The lot was empty, the way it had been the first time we sought it, only now the absence was a wound. A realtor's lockbox hung from the porch rail. I had the code. We'd kept it for showings we never scheduled. My key still worked. Inside smelled of sawdust and betrayal. The furniture we'd picked together, wicker chairs, the driftwood coffee table, was gone. Only indentations in the rug remained, like ghosts of where our life had sat. I walked room to room, touching walls we'd painted ourselves. The faint outline of the crib we'd never assembled still penciled on the nursery drywall. In the kitchen, a single post-it clung to the fridge. Beer wants closing next week. Thanks for everything. Mark's handwriting, neat, final. I sat on the bare floor on the sun-warmed boards and let the tears come, then hot, silent, furious. Not for the house, for the baby, for the future we'd buried in that sand. For the man I thought I knew, that night I didn't go home. I checked into a motel off the coastal road, the kind with flickering neon and a Bible in the drawer. I laid out every document I could find, the deed, joint bank statements, the sale contract I printed from the county website at 2 a.m. on my laptop. The numbers didn't lie. The beach house had sold for $385,000. The money had vanished into Mark's personal account the same day. No mortgage payoff, no college fund, nothing. I slept in fits, waking to the sound of waves that weren't there. At dawn, I drove to the title company. The closer, a kind-eyed woman named Dolores, recognized me from the original purchase. She hesitated, then pulled the file. "Your husband handled everything," she said softly. "Said you were indisposed. The word tasted like rust. Back at the motel, I made a list on the complimentary notepad. Find the beer. Find the money. Find Mark. I started with the beer. A reverse lookup on the new owner's name led to a Shell LLC in Delaware. Dead end, but the escrow check had been cut to a local bank. I knew the branch manager. Mark had golfed with him. I put on the navy blazer I kept in the car for parent-teacher nights, dabbed concealer under my eyes, and walked in like I still belonged in the world of joint accounts and shared dreams. "Mrs. Carter," the manager greeted, surprise flickering. "Mark didn't mention you'd be stopping by. He's been busy," I said, smiling the way Miss Ellis taught me, pleasant, unreadable. "I just need a printout of recent large transfers from our beach house sale." He shifted. "That's Mark's personal account now. I'm still a signer on the original loan," I reminded him. "And the IRS will want records for capital gains." A bluff. But his fingers were already tapping keys. The printout showed 3 transfers in the past 10 days. $150,000 to Coastal Holdings, LLC. $80,000 to Atlantic Gaming Enterprises. $120,000 to an offshore account in the Caymans, Atlantic Gaming Enterprises. A casino 2 hours north. I knew the name. Mark had taken me once, years ago, for my birthday. I'd hated the cigarette haze, the desperate clatter of slots. He laughed, kissed my temple, promised it was just fun. I remembered the way his eyes had lingered on the roulette table. Hungry, I drove home. Mark's truck was in the driveway, mud splattered from some trip I hadn't known about. He was in the kitchen, back to me, pouring cereal. The domesticity of the milk carton, the clink of spoon made my stomach lurch. "Hey, babe," he said without turning. "Thought you were at therapy." I was. I set the folder on the counter. Then I went to the beach. He froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. Milk dripped onto the granite. I opened the folder. Sale contract. Bank statements. The post-it. Explain. He turned slowly. The man I loved looked like a stranger, eyes bloodshot, skin sallow, a tremor in his left hand. "Sarah, I can fix this. You sold our house." My voice was calm, the way the ocean is calm before it swallows you. "Well, I was learning how to live without our child. It was an investment," he said, words tumbling. "High yield opportunity. I was going to triple it. Buy us something bigger, stop. I held up the casino receipt I printed from the bank portal. You lost it at the tables. He crumpled, forehead against the cabinet. I thought I could win it back. Just one more hand. How much is left? He whispered a number. Less than 20 grand. Pocket change. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I walked to our bedroom, pulled the suitcase from the closet, the same one we'd used for our honeymoon, and started packing his clothes. Neat folds. Socks matched. The way he liked. What are you doing? His voice cracked, giving you dignity. I said, you have until morning, he begged. On his knees in the hallway, tears soaking my jeans. Told me about the rush, the lights, the way the cards felt like control when everything else was slipping. Said the miscarriage had broken him too, that gambling was how he numbed the guilt. I listened, heart splintering, but I didn't soften. You chose the tables over us, I said. Now live with the hand you played. He left at dawn with one bag and the truck. I changed the locks by noon. The next weeks were a blur of paperwork and quiet fury. I filed for legal separation grounds, dissipation of marital assets. Hired a forensic accountant named Carla, a sharp woman with a smoker's rasp and a talent for untangling lies. Together, we traced every dollar. The casino had records, Mark's player card, comped rooms, a line of credit he'd maxed. The offshore account was a dead end, but the $150,000 to Coastal Holdings, that was a loan against the beach house equity taken out 6 months earlier, forged signature on the application. My signature. I confronted the beer through Dolores, a retired couple from Ohio, innocent as lambs. They'd paid cash, thrilled to snag ocean front. When I showed them the forged loan docs, the wife's hand flew to her mouth. We had no idea, she whispered. They agreed to rescind quietly to avoid litigation. The title reverted to me within 30 days. I paid them back every cent from our joint savings, leaving Mark with nothing but the clothes on his back. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The house was mine again, but it felt like a mausoleum, every corner echoing with what we'd lost. I walked the empty rooms, south wind rattling the windows, and made a decision. I would not let his wreckage define me. The days after Mark left were like navigating fog thick, disorienting, but with glimpses of clarity breaking through. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my sister. Not our friends. The shame was a heavy coat I wore alone, buttoned tight against the chill of judgment. But secrets like this don't stay buried. They erode the sand beneath your feet until the tide pulls everything into view. It started with the mail. Bills arrived, red-stamped and urgent. Utilities for the beach house, now in arrears. A credit card maxed at the casino. Collection notices curling like accusations. I paid what I could from my teaching salary, dipping into the emergency fund we'd built together, irony sharp as a shell shard. Then the calls came. From the firm, Mark hasn't shown up in days. Is everything okay? From mutual friends, heard Mark's truck was packed. You two all right? I answered vaguely at first. He's on a trip, but lies have a shelf life. Especially in a small coastal town where gossip travels faster than the morning fog burns off. My sister, Lena, was the first to know the full truth. She drove down unannounced one weekend, her minivan crunching gravel in the driveway, kids spilling out with sandy feet, and questions. Aunt Sarah, where's Uncle Mark? The youngest asked, and I busied myself with juice boxes to avoid her eyes. Lena cornered me in the kitchen later, as the dishwasher hummed its cycle. Spill, she said, arms crossed, her tone the big sister mix of worrying and command. I told her everything: the miscarriage's shadow, the sale, the gambling, the forged loan. She listened without interrupting, her coffee growing cold. When I finished, she hugged me fierce, her shampoo smelling of lavender. That bastard, she whispered. We'll fix this. By evening, she'd called our parents, her voice steady on the line. Dad's response was gruff. Need a lawyer. I know a guy, Mom cried, then rallied. Come stay with us. I declined, but the dam had broken. Word spread like wildfire on dry dunes. At school, colleagues whispered in the staff room, their coffee mugs pausing mid-sip. The principal pulled me aside, her hand gentle on my arm. Take time if you need it. Students noticed to my distracted grading, the way my voice caught reading poetry about loss. One girl, a senior with wise eyes, slipped a note on my desk. Ms. Carter, hope you're okay. It touched me, that quiet kindness. The community turned next. Our beach town was tight-knit. Everyone knew the house had sold, then mysteriously unsold. Rumors flew at the diner over plates of fried clams and coleslaw. Mark gambled it away. Poor Sarah. After the baby ... a local paper picked it up a small blurb in the real estate section. Oceanfront sale reversed amid fraud allegations. No names. But in a place like this, anonymity was a myth. Friends distanced themselves from Mark. Invitations dried up. His golf buddies stopped calling. One, a burly accountant named Ted, showed up at my door with a six-pack and apologies. We didn't know, he said, shifting on the porch. He borrowed from us too. Small stuff, but ... I nodded, accepted the beer, but didn't invite him in. Mark faced the brunt. His firm fired him quietly, embezzlement whispers, though it was just the missed days and erratic performance. He crashed with a cousin upstate, or so Lena heard through the grapevine. Creditors hounded him. The casino sued for the line of credit. I didn't pursue charges for the forgery Carla advised it would drag on, and I wanted clean breaks, not chains. But the separation papers included asset division. The beach house mine, debt's his. He signed without fight, his signature shaky on the scanned PDF. Family reactions cut deepest. Mark's parents, retired in Florida, called sobbing. We raised him better, his mother said, voice thin over the speaker. They offered money. I refused. Help him get treatment, I suggested. They did rehab for gambling addiction, a program in the Midwest with group sessions and accountability apps. Mark went, letters arriving sporadically. I'm sorry. Working on it, I read them on the porch, waves a constant murmur, and filed them away. Forgiveness wasn't mine to give yet. Survival was, publicly, the consequence was isolation for him, empathy for me. Neighbors left casseroles on the step tuna noodle with crunchy onions, still warm. The women's book club invited me, their circle a soft landing of shared stories and wine. Even the realtor, Dolores, checked in. If you need to sell for real, I'll waive my fee. I didn't. The house was my anchor now. As spring thawed the coast, I began the quiet work of rebuilding. The beach house needed love-peeling paint, leaky faucets from neglect. I hired a handyman, a quiet man named Raw with calloused hands and a gentle nod. We worked side by side some days, me sanding banisters while he fixed pipes, the scent of sawdust mingling with sea air. Lost my wife to cancer, he shared once, over sandwiches on the porch. Grief changes you. I nodded, sharing bits of my story. No romance, just companionship in the ruins. I returned to therapy with Ms. Ellis, sessions now focused on trust. Betrayal is a thief, she said, but you decide what it steals permanently. I journaled fiercely, pages filled with anger turning to resolve. Teaching grounded me students essays on resilience mirroring my own path. I started a side gig, freelance writing for local magazines, articles on coastal living, the words flowing like tides. The house transformed slowly. I repainted the nursery white, turned it into a study with a desk by the window, ocean views inspiring my work. Planted a garden herbs and wildflowers, their roots digging deep into sandy soil. Evenings, I'd walk the beach, collecting shells in a basket, the sun setting in fiery streaks. Loneliness visited, but so did peace, the kind that comes from standing alone and not falling. Mark's letters evolved, admissions of weakness, steps in recovery. I gambled to fill the void after the baby, one read. But I lost us instead. I responded once, heal for you. Not me. Separation turned to divorce papers, signed in a lawyer's office smelling of leather and ink. No bitterness in the room, just closure. Like a door clicking shut softly. Friends rallied. Lena visited often, her kids building sandcastles while we talked life. A new circle formed, women who'd faced their own storms, sharing coffee and stories on my porch. One, a widow named Grace, became a confidant, Strength isn't absence of pain. It's walking through it. Her words stuck. Like grains of sand in my shoes. As summer bloomed, the beach house felt like mine, truly mine. One rented out a room on weekends to tourists, the extra income a buffer. Wrote my first short story collection, inspired by loss and renewal, submitted to publishers with trembling hands. Acceptance came in a crisp email, joy bubbling like sea foam. Healing wasn't linear. Waves of doubt crashed some nights, but I learned to ride them. The miscarriage scar softened, a reminder of love's fragility. Mark finished rehab, moved to a new town, started over as a bookkeeper, humble, accountable. We exchanged civil emails about loose ends. No more. In the end, the betrayal taught me, trust is earned, not assumed. Home is within, not walls. I sat on my porch one evening, tea steaming, waves whispering, and felt whole, scars and all. The sun sets the same way it always has over this stretch of coast, slow and golden, painting the water in molten copper. I sit on the same porch, Mark, and I once dreamed on, but the chair is mine now, sanded smooth by my own hands, cushions chosen for comfort, not compromise. Lily pads bloom in the little pond I dug where the crib outline used to be. Their scent drifts up at dusk, soft and clean. Inside, the kettle whistles for one, and the quiet is no longer an ache, it is a choice. I kept the house, but I sold the story. The collection of short pieces, Tides After Loss, hit shelves last spring. Readers write to me, your words helped me leave the gambler. I named my daughter after the garden you planted. Their letters sit in a cedar box on the mantel, next to a single smooth stone from the beach the day I took the keys back. Proof that what was stolen can become something given. Mark lives 3 states away now. He sends a birthday card every year, no return address, just a simple thinking of you. I keep those too, in a separate drawer. Forgiveness isn't reunion. It's releasing the knots so your own hands stop bleeding. If you're watching this and your world has cracked open, if someone you trusted sold the dream out from under you while you were still learning how to breathe, hear me. The tide always comes back. It may leave different shells, but it leaves beauty if you walk far enough. Build small. Plant something. Let the salt air sting until it heals. You are not the wreckage. You are the shore. Would you have fought for the house or walked away clean? Tell me in the comments, quietly, honestly. And if this story wrapped its arms around you even for a moment, subscribe. There are more porches, more sunsets, more women finding their way back to solid ground. I'll be here, telling the truth the way the ocean does, steady, wave after wave.